Difficulty by obstacle. Obstacles range from 1 to 10, only occasionally getting higher. 1 is the easiest, 10 the most difficult. According to the exponent list, a character who is competent in an area has 4 dice to roll for that ability. 4 dice requiring 4s or better means he can routinely pass tests of obstacle 1 or 2. He can pass obstacle 3 and 4 tests with some difficulty. Anything higher than obstacle 4 is too difficult, since he can only roll 4 successes on 4 dice. Ob 5 or higher is out of his range. A character with an ability at exponent 5, an expert according to our list, can routinely hit obstacles 1 through 3, but will find obstacles 4 and 5 a bit difficult. Still, he can hit obstacle 5 unassisted, while a skill exponent of 4 cannot. A character with a master level ability, exponent 8, can achieve great things, rolling 6, 7 or 8 successes, but even he can't reach the Ob 10 unaided. This simple table visually depicts the range of difficulty by ability level in Burning Wheel. Dark grey is easy, medium grey is hard, light grey is too hard for an ability of that exponent to accomplish unassisted. It is the philosophy of the system that some tasks are either too complex to accomplish without help, or simply too difficult to accomplish at all. Sometimes high obstacles will force players to be creative and think of another way around. Absolute difficulty. The difficulty of a test does not vary according to the skill of its user. The difficulty is set, and the user must muster his skill and advantages to overcome it. Ob 1. A simple act done with little thought. Ob 2. An act performed routinely at your job. Ob 3. An act you can accomplish if you concentrate. Ob 4. A risky act. Ob 5. An act that requires expertise. Ob 6. An act that requires a heroic effort. Ob 7. An improbable feat. Ob 8. An act requiring preternatural ability or a lot of help. Ob 9. An act deemed nearly impossible. Ob 10. A miracle. Increasing difficulty. Obstacles can be increased by problems like carrying a baby in a papoose on your back in a sword fight. That's +1 ob to running around and fighting. Obstacles once set aren't reduced by the workarounds, tricks or fixes from the players. Those elements add dice to the ability to overcome the obstacle. Open-ended rolls. Certain rolls in Burning Wheel are described as open-ended. This means that any 6s rolled allow the player to pick up another die. If you hit your difficulty number or higher, it's a success. If you don't meet your difficulty number, the die is a traitor. If you roll 6, it counts as a success, and you get to roll another die. For Steel, Faith and any ability considered magical, Dwarven Arts, Elven Skill Songs, or Sorcery for example, are all open-ended rolls. Anything can happen. Basic dice in brief. We roll dice when a conflict arises. The number of dice rolled is determined by the character's relevant ability that applies to the conflict. You don't use cooking to win a brawl, know what I mean? The number of dice rolled is equal to the number next to the ability. This is called the exponent. For the majority of tests, 4s and better are successes. 3s and lower are traitors. The difficulty number is determined by the ability's shade. The obstacle is the inherent difficulty of the task being attempted. You need successes equal to the obstacle to pass the test. Open-ended rolls. 6s on Faith, Steel and Magic type tests allow you to pick up another die and roll it again, hopefully adding more successes. Elements of character. Burning Wheel is a gritty game. It is designed so that characters appear and feel like human beings, or a similar analogue. They bleed, strain and sweat. They have limitations but are also lucky and miraculous. Characters are the most important part of Burning Wheel. They are the player's incarnations in the game, and nothing happens in the game world that doesn't involve a player character. Let's take a look at what comprises a character in this system. He has stats, attributes and skills, beliefs, instincts and traits, resources, relationships, reputations, affiliations and circles. And of course he's got his gear and stuff he totes around with him. All of these elements affect how the character is played, and thus how the game is shaped by the character's actions. To help you get a feel for the system, these aspects are described in general terms in the following section. Individual uses of these abilities are detailed in later sections. Stats. There are 6 stats that describe a character's basic mental and physical composition in Burning Wheel. Will, perception, agility, Speed, power, and fort. Will is the social stat. It represents the character's strength of mind, empathy, and social intelligence. It is the basis of a number of skills and attributes. Perception. Perception is the awareness and mental acuity stat. It's rolled all the time in-game. Players always have their characters searching for information or clues, and this is the stat that's tested in those situations. Agility. Agility represents the hand-eye coordination of the character. It is tested when the character must keep hold of something, snatch something, or toss an object. It is also the basis for many martial skills. Speed. This quirky stat represents how fast the character moves and how coordinated he is overall. It's rolled all the time in-game, from fleeing your enemies to ducking a blow. It's also the basis of the dancing, stealthy, and climbing skills. Power. Power represents physical strength. It's rolled in the game when the character has to push something over or grapple with someone. It's also the basis for damage in melee attacks. Fort. Fort represents a character's physical mettle, how tough and durable he is. Fort is rarely rolled in-game, but is part of two crucial attributes: health and mortal wound. Attributes. Attributes are derived from stats and are used for more subtle tests than the raw instances described above. They can also be avenues to additional abilities available only to certain characters. Health. The health attribute is derived from will and fort. It is used in-game to recover from injury and resist effects of pain and fatigue. Reflexes. The reflexes attribute is calculated from perception, agility, and speed. It is used to determine how often a character acts during a fight. Reflexes isn't tested like other abilities. Steel. Steel is a complex attribute that combines elements from different stats and the character's background to determine how steady a character's nerves are. Steel has its own section and is discussed in detail there. Emotional attributes. Some characters possess an additional ability tied to their emotional makeup. Faith, grief, greed, and hatred are a few examples. These attributes are factored by answering questions about the character and are tested by special circumstances in-game. Emotional attributes have their own chapter and are further detailed in the individual life path chapters. Mortal wound. Mortal wound combines power and fort to set the point at which the character dies in the injury mechanics. Mortal wound is never tested. It is just a marker. Shade. It is possible to gain abilities beyond the mundane. Your character can have a heroic power stat or a supernatural dance skill. These special abilities are denoted by a different shade: grey or white. Skills. In Burning Wheel, a skill is a specialised field of knowledge or particular technique known by the character. A skill allows a character to achieve his goals more easily than by using stats. Examples of skills include animal husbandry, mending, sorcery, sword, and ugly truth. Characters tend to have many skills. From 4 to 12 is normal. 20 is not unheard of. Beliefs. A player must determine 3 top priorities for his character. These are fundamental ideas important to the character. They are a combination of the outlook of the character and the goals of the player. I must prove my worth to my companions, so I will guide them through these caverns. Beliefs are discussed in their own chapter in this book. Creating them is described in the character burner. Instincts. Instincts are similar to beliefs. They are player-determined priorities and reactions for the character. They are based on the character's experiences and have a tangible function. An instinct is essentially an if-then or always-never statement for the character's behaviour. If surprised, I draw my sword. The player is allowed to program these actions and reactions into his character. Therefore, he can be assured that his character will react within certain parameters whether the player explicitly states it or not at that moment in play. Think of them as hardwired reactions from training and experience, and little insurance the player takes out against the GM. Instincts have their own section in this book. Creating them is discussed in the character burner. Traits. Traits are quirks and odd abilities that the character acquires through the course of his life. A player starts by purchasing traits in character burning, but they will also be earned in play. Traits affect a character's personality, his appearance, and even grant him special abilities. Where beliefs and instincts are relatively loosely defined, the role of traits in the game is mechanically fixed. Using traits is discussed in the Burning Wheel. Creating and purchasing them is talked about in the character burner.